Morning, everybody. Welcome to the London Borough, Hammersmith and Fulham's growth programs from Fit to Supply, sponsored by the London Borough, Hammersmith and Fulham. And this is part of that ongoing skill training under the Fit to Supply brand for Branduin. We're delivering this on behalf of the council, giving you opportunities to develop your skills, and today we're focusing on the circular economy and developing key partnerships. This is focused on startups, self-employed, micro businesses, SMEs, people looking to gain those skills in order to enhance their business model and look at ways that they can build and collaborate with other businesses in the borough. So we'll be starting this at about 2 minutes past, so in another minute or so I'll formally start the presentation. Right, good morning everybody, and welcome to this program which is focusing on delivering growth for SMEs. This is a Branduin delivered program on Fit to Supply, and it's a fully sponsored and paid for program by the London Borough, Hammersmith and Fulham, looking to bring skills and ability for local businesses to work on improving their skill set, developing key partnerships, and circular economy is what we're focusing on today, and that's an important part of growth in your business model. To introduce myself today, I'm your presenter, Tony Mulvale. I run my own consultancy called Planning for the Best, and I'm a member of the Association for Project Management, working with Branduin Business Support to deliver this webinar for you. I also lecture at the University of West London on a consulting module there. As a master's level program that I'm involved with, and I'll be taking you through today the circular economy and key partnerships. So welcome everybody. If you want to use the chat to ask me any questions, please do so. Just drop your questions into the chat and I'll look to answer them during the session. We'll also be asking you questions with exercises as we go, so we'll be using the chat to do that as well. So moving on to what is the circular economy, we'll give you an overview of what it's all about. We'll talk about the traditional model versus the value transfer model that's emerging as a result of thinking about how we can partner with people. And then we'll move into the business model canvas and start looking at those transfer activities. There'll be some exercises for you, so you'll be able to think about how to develop your business model and how to find those key partners. And then from there, we'll come out of this with an action plan, and there'll be the one-to-one sessions as well. So looking at this, what is Fit to Bid? This is where we go away and look at how do we develop those partnerships, and how do we make sure that we can build and increase and work on the way our businesses interact with the local economy. So it's an important part of the process, and it's definitely something that we want to talk about in more detail. There's an opportunity at the end to talk about social value and develop the one-to-ones with this, so we'll be covering that at the end as well, just as a reminder that that's there for you. So just moving on to what is Fit to Bid. Is about engaging with procurement. Procurement can be a bit challenging for people with the local authorities, so all of the webinars in this session are designed to help you increase your bid capability, to work on your bidding skills, leading to sales enablement, and that means that you can start to bid for this work in the confidence that you know what you're looking to achieve. And then we can also provide you with tender advice as well. So what we want to do when we think about the circular economy is starting to is ending the throwaway society. So it's getting to the point where we can say we're looking at the green economy, we're looking at economic activities, we're looking at enhanced well-being for businesses and for people. And we're also thinking about that transition into our development strategies and how can we use, recycle and take into account products that we're using such that we can maximize the lifespan of those products. And there's a whole array of different spaces that we can work in with that. And so when we look at this and we look at the circular economy, where we're talking about this movement from this traditional linear flow where we take the raw materials, we make a product with them, we use them, and then we dispose of them. Computers, phones are classic examples of things that are produced from raw materials, and there was not a market for recycling them, so oftentimes they would just end up being trashed, and there's a lot of components that can be reused. So we're getting away from this idea of taking those scarce resources, making these products that are shipped to clients. They have a limited lifespan. You know, your laptop, your PC only is usable for maybe 5 years, depending on the spec that you purchased at the outset. And we oftentimes end up just throwing these away, and that can be all sorts of goods. It can be materials, it can be fashion items. So we're starting to think about, well, how do we get into the circular economy, and how do we go from the take to waste and insert this return, reuse, recycle, repair piece in here, so that once we finish using this product, we can start to say, well, what are we going to do? We're going to reuse, repair that. For phones, for example, if you've got a cracked screen, there are companies now that will enable you to go there and fix the cracked screen so you can continue to use the phone and keep it as a functional device for you. With your laptops, you can continue to reuse those in a period of time, or with clothing, you know, sometimes we can go back and send those off to secondhand stores and have them, you know, reused by others through that process. We've also got the recycle and return. Some companies offer us an end-of-life return. It could be, for example, if you buy a new washing machine, the company that you're purchasing the washing machine will take your old one back because they can actually recycle that as part of their process. So when we're working in our small businesses, we need to be thinking about, well, how do I optimize some of that return, recycle, repair, reuse? And the other piece in recycling now that's becoming more active and people are marketing this is recycled and remanufactured laptops. I saw this the other week where basically if I've got an old Apple or an IBM or a Mac or whatever it might be, I can send that to these companies. They will purchase the old device off you, and then they go back and they remanufacture new devices, and you can buy a new laptop at a substantial reduction in price to an old, a brand new one off the shelf of a department store or wherever you buy them from. So there are opportunities there to reduce the amount of waste that we produce. We're still not going to produce zero waste, but we're going to make sure that we extend the life of the component parts that are in there. And even something like a kettle, if you're getting rid of a kettle, it's got a copper cable and the electric plug for it and the wire that drives the electricity into the kettle, you can recycle that because that copper is still a valuable resource. So we're going from take to make and reducing waste. And by limiting all of that, we're increasing the value for everybody to society. We're reducing the amount of landfill, we're reducing the amount of material that is just sent to be skipped. So this value transfer model is about taking waste and turning it back into the raw materials where we go back into that take cycle again. And in an example of the laptops, that's very much a case of saying, I can sell my laptop, I can sell my old phone, I can get some income for that. And the person buying it off me is going to use it to rebuild a new piece of equipment, and I'm going to buy that, and maybe I'm buying back parts that were in my old laptop when I sold it. So there's this transfer and exchange, and if we think about that as a simple example, we're able to generate revenue as a result of as a result of selling something that we have that we no longer need. So there's some challenges in that as well. So thinking about the next stage in this is like, you know, the waste from the fashion brands. We can take the cotton that's in there, we can turn that into insulation in the construction business. We've got bottles that we recycle. So if we're using plastic bottles, that can be recycled for other use with that plastic. Paper is a great one for recycling and shredding. We can shred paper, we can recycle it, we can repulp it, and it comes back as new paper. That reduces the raw materials that goes into that, reduces the amount of waste that we have as a consequence of that. And one that people probably think of as a more traditional recycling one is metal in cars. You know, we take a car to the scrapyard, all the parts get recycled, the metals, etc., and that feeds back into new metal in new products. So lots of different ways that we can do that, and lots of ways that we can take our waste and turn it into something that can be sold. Another example of that is in the food industry. If you're in the food industry and you're in catering and you've got a lot of waste, it may be that you can start selling that waste to people who want to use anaerobic digesters to generate methane and butane for gas, and using that to fire gas cookers or gas boilers. So you might have, you know, let's say 200 kilograms of waste every week that you're producing. There is a market for that. So you can look at talking to some of those people who want to buy your waste, because they feed it into a biodecomposition process, and that gives you an opportunity to recycle that waste. It would still generate methane if you just put it sent it to landfill, but now it's going into a different process where the outcome of that decomposition is becoming a natural gas that we can then reuse and recycle and burn that in the boiler. Breweries are classic examples of this when they have a lot of waste. So there's different ways and means of doing that, and it's your outputs becoming someone else's inputs, and there are opportunities in the market to make the most out of that waste. And when we come into the benefits of this, we're talking about the costs. We can reduce our costs of sourcing and operating. We can, as I talked about as an example there, somebody's actually paying us to take our waste away. Whereas before, maybe we had to pay for the council to come and collect the waste from a commercial piece, or we're getting a commercial company to come and pay for it. We were paying them to take the waste away. Now we're paying someone to take our waste away. It helps improve the resilience of our supply chain, because we're not as reliant on new products. We're relying on different ways of sourcing those materials. Compliance risk is becoming much more of a topic these days. We've got environmental, social, and governance, which is a transition from the old corporate social responsibility, and we can start demonstrating how we are complying with the environmental requirements, with the governance requirements around waste and energy consumption and those types of activities. And also we're finding with our millennial employees, they're much more interested in companies with a purpose. So people who have a vision in their companies about how we're going to be greener tend to attract and maintain and retain motivated staff who are talented and want to do better for your business. We get commercial benefits as well. So we're looking at customer loyalty and retention. Again, customers are looking at your green credentials, at your recycling credentials, at your impact on the environment, at your impact on social value, and that's making the consumer more aware of what you offer as a business, not just your product, but the ethos and the ethics that you have around what is my product and how do I sell it. And also, as we talked about, we can generate new revenue streams. If your waste becomes a product that someone wants, there is a market for that. You can sell that into that product. You can sell old electronic equipment, you can sell food waste, you can sell your clothing waste if you have that, because that can be recycled into different ways in the economy. And you can demonstrate your credentials, and that leads to a stronger view of your brand and your positioning in the market as a green company. And we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. An example of that is a TV company. They've transitioned from tungsten bulbs, which consume 96% of the electricity they consume turns into heat, 4% is light, to LED bulbs, where their electricity consumption is reduced by 96% when they're turning these lights on for filming in studios or on set. And what they've also found is that by having a significant reduction in heat, they also don't need as much air conditioning to keep the studio cool, because you can imagine if you've ever been in a studio or in a theatre where there are hot lights, you need air conditioning to reduce the temperature in the building. Well, now you're not generating so much heat. You also don't need as much air conditioning to pay for in terms of the electricity consumption and the carbon dioxide outcome that produces. So you get multiple benefits sometimes from doing that sort of transition to the green, to reducing your greenhouse gas emissions. Another example, even in a small business, might be to switch all of your lighting from halogen bulbs to LED lights. That will reduce your electricity bill. It reduces the amount of heat that you're generating, the amount of carbon dioxide, and that has a knock-on effect to your business in terms of reduced cost, and also you can demonstrate that you're doing something that's environmentally friendly. Reducing waste, that's by making sure that everything can be recycled. What can we recycle? Paper, electronics, food waste. What's left over can be substantially reducing the amount of waste that we produce. And by not using landfill, by not putting back products into the land that can contaminate or disrupt the land, we're increasing biodiversity and protecting those areas of nature from being polluted by our activities. So that's the kind of background to that. When we're looking at our canvas, we used to talk about feasibility, desirability, viability, and adaptability. Desirability is about our customers and whether they want our product or not. If customers don't want the product, we have no sales. We talked about the feasibility of running the operation, so making sure that we've got a good set of processes, that we're working with our key partners, and that we are clear about who does what in the business. Because if we are running a business and we find that we're there at 7 o'clock at night restacking the storeroom, and we spend 2 hours every night to do that, that's a short-term thing that might be possible for the business to maintain. But as you continue to do that, there's a point where you can't continue to do that, and your business can implode, or your stock in the room is not ordered. Therefore, the process becomes bogged down and becomes less efficient. So when we talk about feasibility, it's about making an effective and efficient operation. Financially viable, revenues must exceed costs. And that's true of any business. If we're not financially viable, we will go bust. And we need to continue to adapt. And we saw a lot of that during COVID as well, where businesses were adapting to new markets, where people were shut down. There were differing opportunities around how do we get out there into the market, and how do we make sure that we're able to adapt to those new requirements. But now we're talking about purpose. And I mentioned this a little earlier about the retention and attraction of talented people. Businesses with purpose, where we're looking at society and the impact of that on the planet as an environmental impact, we have a purpose about that. That's another piece of the lens that we're looking for, to say, how are we adding value to our society, to our local community, and to the local environment, and how does that contribute in the whole to the planet? So we're thinking about that. We're thinking about the ecological challenges ahead. This idea of purpose is important now. We should not overlook this. And when we're thinking about innovation and growth, we need to put purpose at the heart of our strategy as well. So this is a ongoing and expansion of the model for the business model canvas, and it's an innovation to start looking at, well, how do we act with purpose? What am I going to do as a business working with purpose? So when we're delivering social value, the business model canvas is starting to take into account our social and environmental impact. So how do we make sure that we're having a positive impact? Where are the areas that we can improve? So what's the negative piece? So you see the red and the green there in the business model canvas. We'll have our commercial customers and the impact on those customers, leading to the economic and the environmental benefits. So our green economy, it's about make, use, reuse, repair, recycle, that circular effect. But the social value is about how do we make a difference as an organization, and how do we make a difference to our community? And it might be only making a difference within 15 minutes of our shop, but that's making a difference in one shop. And if 2 shops do that, and then 4, and then 8, then suddenly we're making a substantial difference through the community, even within our 15-minute walk to the shops. So that's something to think about, is that, you might think I'm just a small business, but there are many different ways that you can make a social and environmental impact for you and your business. So in summary, it's an alternative business model. It's about making significant changes to how we work, but sometimes those changes can be they can be small in terms of the amount of effort and time needed to make them, and so therefore we need to balance it up. But we're looking at saying we can do this fairly quickly, but it's going to make substantial change in the long run. So it's about having a different business model. It's about saving costs, access to our new markets, so ways to sell our waste or ways to reduce our costs. And it's looking at being more resilient. The COVID pandemic created a lot more resilience with organizations. We're able to develop new ways of doing things, and those new ways can lead to new intellectual property, and we can commercialize that. We can sell that IP or license it in the market. The regulation compliance is also part of that. So how do we fit into that? We get access to talent because we've got people who are motivated to work for us, and we're engaging with local business as well. How do we work together as partners to make this a better place to do business? And there are some free workshops as well for SMEs in London from relondon.gov.uk. So I would encourage you to go and click on that link and sign up for that after this presentation. And then now we're looking at how do we move into the key partnerships and working together, and what does that mean? And so we've got the cheetah here, which we know is the fastest land animal in the world, and we know that they hunt alone. They're usually out in the plains. It's a very fast animal, but the chase is limited to a couple of 300 meters. They do get tired easily. Cheetahs are the only cats that can't climb trees. So oftentimes if a cat has a kill, it will take it up a tree and use it to keep it safe from other animals. But if the cheetah is approached by lions, leopards, it will run away from the catch that has managed to succeed with. So their success rate is 50-50. It's a coin toss as to whether they're going to get success or not. But we look at another land animal that we know in Africa, which is around the proverb of, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. So elephants work as herds. The matriarchs know where the good food spots are and the water spots. They look after their young, and they work together to share the burden and as a partnership. So it's a different way of thinking about sustainable partnerships, of being able to work together as a group and communicating with each other to make that happen. And when we look at Branduin's world, we have a number of partnerships that we've built up over time, local authorities, and we have, Hammersmith and Fulham, who are the sponsors for this program, who are providing these webinars and one-to-ones for you, the local businesses. And we also have Ealing, Hounslow, Hillingdon, Watford, and we've worked with many other businesses over the time. So what we're going to talk about in the partnerships is how do we exchange value between the businesses. So it's about us as our business, who is our partner, and what are the goals that we want to achieve when we're working with these partners. So this is an important part of the process, making sure that we're clear about what we offer, what our partners offer, and how we're going to work together to make sure that that value is transferred between the two organizations. So why are we going to partner? Well, we're looking at expectations. It might be that a partner has something that is useful to us that helps deliver additional benefit for the customer. It's enabling us to engage with our customers as well to provide those solutions. Sometimes the collaboration can generate different results that increase our ability to compete in the market, or reduce our costs, or allow us to scale up. We can reduce risk from that as well, because it's a joint venture, so therefore the risk is shared amongst the two organizations. And also we can use this for resources and acquiring those resources we need. And there's a number of different areas that can work in. It could be marketing partnerships. We don't always want to market the work that we're doing ourselves because we might not have the key skills. Can we find a partner to do that? If I'm selling products and I'm looking for someone who can help me deliver them, I might be looking at a supply chain partner. In Hammersmith and Fulham, there's a a venture that allows people to buy products from you, and they will then come around with this electric vehicle, collect your product and deliver it to the end customer. So there's an initiative there that's helping local shops in Hammersmith and Fulham deliver goods to people through a collection process that is sort of set inside the local borough. We can talk about integration, partnerships, technology and financial. All of these are different ways that we can think about the different lenses for this to happen. So when we're thinking about our key partnerships, how do we adapt our model to fit into that? And it's identifying who are our key partners, who are our key suppliers, what resources do we need from them, and what are the key activities that our partners perform for us. So they're the 4 questions that we want to ask as part of this. And so the first exercise is to think about for a couple of minutes, who are your strategic partnerships? And you can pop some answers in the chat, but have a quick think about, who are your key partnerships, and who do you deal with that makes your business successful through a strategic partnership with them. So Sharon's using DPD to deliver goods. Can't guarantee you get their electric vehicles. Enzo, local council, local charities focusing on health and social inclusion with commercial sponsors. Yep, that's good. Sharon, I know there's also the opportunity to hire electric vehicles inside Hammersmith and Fulham as well. I'm not sure if that would help you, because I guess if you're using DPD, you may be distributing further across the UK, but there's definitely an electric vehicle option in, yeah, that's what I thought. There's definitely an electric vehicle option if you've got local deliveries within Hammersmith and Fulham. Anybody else got any key partners? So we've got delivery, logistics, we've got the council, the charities, so looking at commercial sponsors for that as well, and how do we bring them into that. So some people have got those. So if you've thought about those, then the next step in this is which of these are critical to your business. So, for Sharon, DPD is a critical partner because they're doing all of your delivery for you. They're acting as a partner for you for your third-party logistics to say, I've got my product, I need to ship it. I don't want to invest in a logistics network of vans and distribution centers nationally, so I'm partnering with someone to do that. And that's a good way of leveraging that network that company, that specialism that company built up. Enzo's talking about the local council, and so they're providing us with resources. And then it's about what are the partnerships that we need that would suit us. So thinking about that is, what are the assets that you're leveraging from your partner? So what is our partner willing to offer us? So what do we get from them? So have a think about that for a couple of minutes, and then it's a case of writing down some of those. What is our key? What does our partner offer? How do we work with them to deliver that? How do they work with us to deliver the value? What value do they deliver? So I think, for the local council, what do they offer? Is it expertise? Is it funding? Is it with the charities? How do we work with them? One way we could partner with the charity, which is a little bit different, is if we've got some office space that we've rented, and maybe we've got enough for another 8 to 10 people to sit in there, but we don't think we're going to use that floor space. You can partner with a local charity, and you can offer them the floor space, and that can help reduce your business rates as well. So there's an exchange of value there, where you're looking to say, we've got office space, we're not using it. Maybe we can work with a local charity to come in and take on that space, and that's going to reduce our business rates, and that gives us an bit more advantage in terms of the way the space is utilized. So thinking about that, and then coming back to what do we offer our partners? So what does our partner value in us? In terms of like the logistics network, the partner values the fact that we use their facilities to do the delivery. What else do we have? Well, we could have in the example of the food waste, we've got an output that our partner wants. So, you know, I've been cooking this week. I've been, you know, making up so many meals and so many covers during the week, and I've got so much food waste. So therefore, I'm going to generate something that partner wants. And so I can say, okay, every 2 days, your truck will come around and I'm going to deliver you my food waste, and you can take that away, and you're paying me for that advantage. So that's what our partner values in us, is a regular supply of food that feeds into their process. We have another example of that, and we'll talk about that at the end. But, you know, sometimes when we have goods, we want to ship them around. And so how do we make sure that all the pallets that they're going on are still recycled into use? Enzo, would you need to achieve an understanding the community health in the community with large stakeholders, including local council and specialised groups, conveying public opinion and articulating the needs? Okay, so that's great. Thanks, Enzo. And I think again with that, it's like that's what you're looking to get from your offering. So how do we make sure that we understand those stakeholders and their needs? Well, it's looking into what do they need and what do they desire. And then the question is, how do we connect with these and transfer that value? So what are those activities and the resources that we need? So an example of the food waste, well, our resources are the food that's produced. The key activity is bagging it up so that it's just the food waste that's there, separating out the food from maybe, you know, the paper and other waste that's generated. That's the resource. That activity is sorting it, and maybe there's a way that we leave that waste for collection. Maybe we've got a bin out the back of the shop that the company can come around and collect from, or maybe we've got a process for doing that. When we shop, they can come around and gather up the food. There's lots of ways of doing that. And so partnering with partners offering goods and services that can be distributed to our beneficiaries. Okay, so that's one where you're looking to put the maker in contact with the customer that you have. So that's some leverage there, where those commercial partners have products that are desirable for your end client. So you're looking at ways of distributing that product to them. So the activity there that you're performing is the marketing and the sales for that. And those the resources are the transfer value as the partner is selling their product through you. If we think about our return on investment, you know, what do we expect? What is the value that we're going to transfer between ourselves? So how much is it going to benefit us to be in connection with this and make sure that the value that we have created turns into a return on our investment? So that's another exercise to think about here. How do we make sure that transfer of value is something tangible for us? Okay, thanks, Enzo. So that's more the philanthropic. Okay, so you're looking to add social value through the way you can leverage your clients with the commercial providers. Is that right? So part of that is looking at, you know, there's a, yeah, okay, thanks, Enzo. So that's a different return. We're not going to necessarily have a monetary return on that particular activity, but there is going to be a social return on that, and perhaps we can measure that as differing social outcomes. So that's going to be maybe sort of the way the person benefits from that is down to better way of living, a reduction in anxieties, or some other aspect that we can measure through a social outcome. So part of that is how do we demonstrate to our commercial partners that we're able to achieve that social value? So, what do we expect to get from that end? So, and how do we demonstrate that social value to the commercial partners? So there's some ideas in that space to think about that, and think about how are we adding value in the business, and the return on investment. Maybe for the council, it can be a reduction in social care costs as a result of the value that you're transferring. So part of that is a different benefit, and it's not a tangible benefit for your business, but it's a tangible benefit for the borough and the way they spend money, because it can help to reduce their social care budget through this charitable activity. There are different options to think about in there. So that's the kind of process around expectations and partnerships, and these things can be relatively straightforward, but they can be quite complex. So it's going to depend on the scale of this. If you are dealing with these logistics companies, you're going to have contracts in place, you're going to have formal terms and conditions about who does what and when and how it happens, and what you need to do in order to have your goods accepted, and how those goods are managed. Some people who are using e-commerce platforms to do their selling, they might be using a third-party logistic company. They might not have any physical product in a store, so they need to have ways of storing their product and separating it out from other goods in that logistic provider's warehouse or distribution center. And you need to pay attention to the terms and conditions and how it works. Some of it can be quite straightforward. As I said, it could simply be, I have food waste, I sell it to someone else. And that's all that we might be able to put in place. So it's all going to be determined by the terms and conditions. So who are the parties involved in this agreement? Is it just the two of us, or are there multiple parties? What are the services that each partner are going to be performing, and what does the agreement mean? Is it a pure sale? Is it a percentage of profit? How are we going to bill people? How are we going to make sure that we receive the money that's due to us? We also want to be clear about who to contact and how to escalate challenges. So if there's something that needs sorting out, who is the person to report to, and how do we contact them, and what's the turnaround for that? Is it, if it's a phone call, we'll always answer the phone call. If it's a chat activity, maybe we'll answer it, online. If it's an email, maybe we've got a turnaround of a certain amount of time. If we look at the duration of the agreement, this is an ongoing contract with a break clause in there, which means that we can terminate the contract at a certain point in time for a certain monetary exchange. Could it be an ongoing agreement with a 30-day, 14-day notice period, or is it a 1 month, 2 month period? We're doing this as a fixed point in time, and we'll finish at a certain point in time, more like a project rather than an ongoing piece of business. Milestones and outcomes. So what do we expect? We're getting into some of the kind of legal necessities of this, because if we're setting out outcomes, what each party expects, what good looks like, what we expect high quality to be, and the milestones associated with the delivery in that form of the contract, it builds us protection from things that don't work out or issues that arise, and we have a mechanism for resolving them. We'll also talk about, particularly with projects, what are our reporting processes? How do we keep on track with the project, with the timelines? Mentioned this just before, but it's about quality control and audit as well. So how do we measure good quality? If we're delivering electrical equipment and we order 50 phones, we want all 50 phones to work. And if one of the phones doesn't work, we might have a return clause in there that says, send us back a new one. And how do we audit this? Some of the fire alarm installers I've worked with, they get boxes of equipment from customers, from their suppliers. They check that everything's in the box. They'll audit that to make sure that the process is working effectively, and they'll make sure that any defects are sent back to the supplier to be replaced. But they have that audit process around there that says, how many boxes did we get? How many were fit to use? How many returns did we make? So they can make sure that they've got that control in place to send that documentation back to the supplier. And what you might also want to talk about with your supplier is, do they have a quality management solution in place? Are they using something like ISO 9001? Is it the right process with the right controls, and how do we demonstrate that they're following that process? So these are some of the things to think about in that particular space. Most importantly, are the people who are signing the contract authorized to sign the contract? Are they directors of the company? Do they have the capacity to act on behalf of the company and sign a contract with you? Always good to check that out. And if you have any doubts about the contract you're signing, it's always good to get legal advice and to talk to your lawyer about, or your solicitor about, here's the terms and conditions, particularly somebody who's familiar with commercial contracts and that type of activity, to make sure that you've not overlooked anything, or that perhaps there are other things that you needed to take into account with the contract. So again, always important to go through that. And if you do have a formal contract, yes, it might be 5 pages of terms and conditions and very legal activity in terms of the wording and the way it's written, but it's important that you've gone through it and you've understood every clause in the contract, because there are situations where a legal contract and wording can be different perhaps to what we've interpreted it as. So you need to make sure that you're clear about what you're signing up for. And that can be something as simple as, if I'm leasing a piece of commercial property, am I inside the 1954 Act? Am I outside the 1954 Act as a tenant? Because that can affect your rights and your ability to continue to work from that premises, and you may not be afforded the same protection if you're outside the 1954 Act. You can be evicted and you won't have any control over the process, whereas if you're inside the 1954 Act, then you've got more security around your tenancy. So there are different, as an example, there are different ways of making sure that we've got access to our premises that's secured for the term that we're working there. So just some things to think about there. And we talked about collaboration and partnerships. There's lots of different ways that we can collaborate. So looking at the Board of Innovation, they talk about a distribution channel. So that's where our goods go and how we move them around. It's about our facilities. So do we have factories? Do we have shops? Do we have premises that we work from? Do we use a shared facility? Lots of shared office space around Hammersmith now. Waste is another one. How do we dispose of our waste? Are there contractors out there that we can talk to that have access to that? Energy and energy consumption. In Park Royal, for example, there are lots of factories up there. Factories are now installing solar panels on their roofs because that gives them access to energy. Some companies have looked at their annual energy consumption and their daily, and worked out the daily energy consumption they need, and they've put solar panels on their roof, and they've been able to replace, 2/3, 3/4 of their electrical requirement through solar panels. It's a big investment to make, but the payoff is that you're using less energy from the grid, and that's saving you a lot of money as well. So there are lots of different ways to look at this. Shared operations, this is where we partner with people who can do part of our process. So the DPD example is one where we don't want to build a distribution network, so we're leveraging somebody else's ability to deliver goods on our behalf. Transformative capacity, this might be where you're working with consultants or with technology companies to transform the way your business works. And what does that mean? That simply means if I've got spreadsheets I'm using at the moment to manage my business or pieces of paper, how can I transition from the spreadsheet and the piece of paper and move from a fairly paper-based solution to more of a technology solution that enables my business to be more effective and more efficient? Co-creation, these are again partnerships where we work with each other to generate new things. And then we've got parts and materials and infrastructure. There's lots of different things that we do in this space to collaborate. And closed and open innovation, in our closed innovation, that's inside the company. That's where we're maybe a bit larger and we've got the ability to work and generate new ideas internally with these boundaries that we work within. Open innovation is where we allow our collaborators and partners to help us identify alternate markets and new ways of doing business. So oftentimes we find that expanding our contacts leads us to thinking about new ways of doing things and new ways of working with businesses. case study here. So if you think about pallets, and I talked a little bit about this and mentioned it earlier, there are different ways of recycling pallets. You know, we think about, we order a pallet of goods, we get it wrapped up, it gets sent somewhere to another distribution center. They might be unpacking that to then send on the final set of goods to the last mile delivery. If we come back to that and say, well, that's one pallet, but now we've got, you know, 50, 60, 100 of these being left on the premises every day, what do we do with them? Well, there's a market for this, but there's only so many pallets that are in circulation at the moment. They cost money to build. We need wood and nails and other resources. So the more that we can reuse these, the better we do at keeping them in the market and being used in a way that recycles them. So we recycle them, the client goes around, they pick up all of the spare pallets that are sitting in your yard, they bring them back, they restack them, they clear them from properties, they're able to recycle and repair them, because sometimes pallets get damaged, so you might need to take parts from 2 or 3 pallets to create a whole pallet again, but you're able to recreate the pallet, and then they're able to sell them back onto companies like DPD who need pallets for distribution. So it becomes quite a circular process at that point, because it's a product that's in demand, and that demand is there in the economy. We're able to recycle, repair, but also on the bottom right there, we've got our DIY projects and repairs, and we're talking about using pallets for furniture, being a bit more creative about making low-cost furniture out of something that's there. At the end of the life, these pallets can also be chipped into wood chips and used in your garden. I've also seen people using pallets to create walkways or decking in their garden as well. So you can take the pallets that are fairly durable, and you can build some of the smaller pallets, maybe you can build a path through your garden that doesn't, you know, get too wet, and it's probably more environmentally friendly than putting concrete down in your garden. So this is one of the ways that we can use, as an example, recycling of goods and working through the circular economy in that way. So that's an example of the circular economy, and it's one that's been around for some time. And just moving on to think about, you know, the partnership process. So this is something to think about now as an exercise as we get to the end of the session, is what's your business challenge? So how do we look at the market? What's the challenge that we have? How are we trying to break into a new market, expand our business in the existing market? So we'll go away and do that market research. Who are the suppliers? Who are the partners we can work with? What are we trying to achieve for the customer? Why do we want to partner with these people? What would these people bring to us as beneficiaries? So what do they offer us in terms of value? What do we offer them in terms of value? How do we exchange that value between the organizations? That's the partnership canvas. That's thinking about that process and thinking about the value we create and the mechanism for transferring it. How do we shortlist these partners? So that could be a process of evaluating the outcomes we want to achieve and saying, how does this partner contribute to that outcome, and coming up with a scoring approach to think about that, or, you know, just assessing them based on their suitability. We might want to engage with them, and not necessarily a formal interview, but at least a business conversation about how we might be able to do business. Is this someone I can do business with? Do they have the capacity and the capabilities I need for my business? And then we think about the design. Is it a joint venture? Do we create a new legal entity, and it's a 50-50 entity where we create and maintain that entity between us? Is it a legal agreement between how we work with each other? How is that going to work? What does that look like? We might want to prototype this as well. So we're thinking about how do we work together to build some examples that first in the market to make it happen. And we test, experiment, refine, and launch our product. So this is a way of stepping through this in a logical and structured manner so that we don't overlook things, and we make sure that we've got the right partner for us. So again, who are our key partners? Who are our key suppliers? What are the key resources we need from our partners, and what are we going to get from them? And what activities do these partners perform for us? So these are the questions that we're asking us. In the case of food waste, the partner's taking the waste away from us and we don't have to pay for it to be removed. With our distribution networks, it's people delivering our product on our behalf to the standard that we require. In the commercial space, it might be about those laptops and those phones being recycled. In the charitable social value space, it's about demonstrating that we're adding value to the community, we're making life more enjoyable for people, we're offering opportunities to reduce the cost of social care in the borough because people have a better life experience. And these are all the things that we can think about here. And then using that canvas and working with your advisors in a one-to-one session, you can think about how do we build in that knowledge transfer and what does that mean and what are the steps we can take to do that. So there's an action plan for you here. So thinking about this as your self-contract and your commitment to deliver, have a little think about what are the top 3 actions that you're going to take away from this from this session today, and what things do I need to do in my business to develop my key partnerships and start generating some of that value transfer between organizations who can help us help our clients. So just give you a minute or so to think about that. Scribble that down while we're waiting. As we're talking about Fit to Supply is all about being able to connect with the local councils. So Hammersmith and Fulham use Capital e-sourcing as their platform. So if you go on there and register, you can look at the contracts that are there in the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham at the moment. There's the london-tenders.org, which is a larger tender portal that deals with some of the tier 1 and main contractors for local government work and for HS2 and other items like that. And then for the national contracts, there's Proactus as well. So you can sign up for those, register for them, and start to think about, what sort of opportunities are you looking for. There's also the council website, and LPHF has a good business section there. One of the things I've done is I've signed up for the regular business newsletter that Nikki Burgess and her team send out from the council. I think it's about once a month. That has a lot of information about what's going on as well. And if you are signing up for these activities, one of the things to bear in mind is that the councils are focusing on spending about £1 in 3 in the local borough. So there are opportunities there. Even if you are a florist, you might find that there's a contract for £5,000 a year to supply flowers to the main entrance hall at the Hammersmith and Fulham Town Hall. You can check out who's actually providing that contract at the moment, and maybe it's somebody from out of borough. And maybe when the bid for that work comes up again, you might be able to find a way of getting that contract, and that could be a substantial change in the service that you offer, and could be a substantial uptick for your business with some of those local contracts. There's always smaller things as well that people might overlook. So have a look at the portal, go to the business website, see what's out there in terms of business opportunities, and then look to see if you can connect with the council to grab the opportunity. So we have a number of events that are happening at the moment. This one, 19th of May, is one of the last webinars. In a couple of weeks' time, it's about writing skills for those bids and tenders. That'll be delivered by my colleague Noshia. And then most importantly, 21st of June, it's going to be a face-to-face and live event at the Shortland Centre down in Hammersmith. So right there on Hammersmith Broadway, which is a Meet the Buyer event. And you'll have an opportunity to come in and talk to local procurement people and departments in Hammersmith and Fulham and learn more about what they're looking for from businesses in the borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, and how you could potentially bid for and win work with them. So that's a really important event, and I encourage people to come down and do that, and hopefully you'll be able to find some time on the afternoon of the 21st to do that. And don't forget, there are 2 sessions of 1 hour each with the Branduin advisors We have about 80 companies capacity to do that, and that's all about creating an action plan for you that shows how you are going to develop a viable tender plan for submitting something to a council for a bid and attempting to win that. So this will help you focus on your business and your needs as a specific activity rather than the webinars, which tend to focus at a bit more high level. This is the process and this is a mechanism to do this. The one-to-ones will actually focus on you and your business and solutions for you. So if you haven't done so already, you can contact us at Branduin afterwards and get that information and sign up for the one-to-ones after that. Nosha is your contact for that. So you can contact him via nosha@branduin.co.uk. You can look at ways of increasing your reach within the borough by looking at local authority procurement, looking at the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, and maybe there's a big contract that's been won that you couldn't tender for, but maybe there's a piece of it, which if you had the, that if you talk to the supplier of the main or the tier 2, you might be able to supply part of that contract. There's always ways that you might be able to do that. Sound engineer is one where somebody's won a contract to do some building work and they need to have a sound engineer check out the noise levels in the building when it's being built. They may not have the expertise in-house to do that, and you might be able to supply that particular niche of experience to that company. So have a look at what you offer, have a look at what these bigger companies need, and see if there's ways that you can fit in as a partner in these people in their businesses and what you offer. And then that's the end of the session today. So happy to answer any questions. There's a couple of minutes left if you want to pop any questions in the chat or get it and ask it for any specific feedback. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming along today. I hope you've found this useful, and if you want to be part of the one-to-ones, contact Nosha at branduin.uk. If you have any questions that you'd like to follow up on, you can email the info@branduin.co.uk or call the number shown there. Happy to answer questions on that. Happy to take any questions in the chat now. We've got a couple of minutes left if people would like to do that. So if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat now. If not, thanks very much, everybody. It's been great to have you here. And I hope you found this workshop valuable. And don't forget that if you haven't signed up already, sign up for the one-to-ones, all sponsored by the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham as part of their investment in the business community. And they've been very active as a borough in working with local businesses to bring them together and build up the local economy. So it's a great place to do business. So thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.